We're ready. You audio tape us, right?
Yes, we are.
We're on the air.
We are audio on.
Okay, and we have Councilor Massey and Council President Anderson.
Massey present.
Anderson present.
Okay.
They're not on. They're not on video. Okay.
Okay. They both called in present, so
They speak.
they can hear us and we can hear them. So with that, we'll start the study session with Dan Harris, our events and emergency management coordinator.
Well, yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, councilors. Thank you once again so much for having me here with you. My name is Dan Harris. I'm your Events and Emergency Management Coordinator, and I can be reached at events@milwaukieoregon.gov. For anybody who sees this later, that's the way to reach me. I am here tonight to talk about events in our city, our winter events that just passed, our Milwaukie Community Events Fund, which is still accepting applications currently, and then also Milwaukie Fest, which I don't want to spoil it, but we are going to have a really cool party in the city weekend of July 11th. So something to look forward to. All right, so to start us off, there we go. Yeah, there we go. To start us off, looking at our umbrella parade. So this is an annual event, as everyone's aware here. We made some changes this year. This was on Saturday, December 7th of 2024. Bike enthusiasm continues to be a challenge. So the issue there is that we worked with our friends at Bike Milwaukie to set up a day of ride. Bike Milwaukie, for anybody who doesn't know, a private bicycle club here in the city of Milwaukie. And they do monthly rides, monthly happy hours, really a lot of good work to try to encourage active transportation, specifically cycling in our city. So I reached out to them and they planned a themed ride for the day. We included a bike decorating portion of the umbrella parade. And sure enough, about 4 people took them up on that. So it's hard to get people to ride a bike in December, and we've not given up on that. This was not much of a cost to the city, and I think we're going to continue to try to advocate for that, try to encourage folks to be involved.
I will say the bikes that were there and decorated were amazing.
Oh, fantastic.
No, I mean, like, really nice.
The thing about getting people to ride their bikes in December is the people who do really care about it.
They do.
And that's great. And we're going to continue to look for ways to encourage that same kind of enthusiasm in more temperate parts of the year. Better waterproofing for cables. The night went off really without a hitch, except for this one thing, and it's when the mayor was speaking.
Yes, it was.
There you go. So what we think happened is that a fuse blew on the PA system. Ultimately, we looked at getting it repaired, and it would have cost more to repair it than it would to replace it. So we have a new one with a case that is water resistant, if not fully waterproof. We also have looked at better waterproofing for the actual cables. We think what it was connected to a puddle that had formed behind the stage. And anyway, we're aware of the problem. We're addressing the problem. We think we've got it solved. In the past several years of us doing this, I don't think we've ever seen the PA system blow like that before, and it was about a decade-old system. So, but it's a known problem now, so we think we've addressed it, and it's certainly something that we will be cognizant of going into 2025.
So we ended up buying a new system.
We did.
And so is it louder?
There's only so loud that you can get with a system that size.
Yeah.
So I will say that it is newer, and with that, I think the technology is just a little bit more advanced, 10 years more advanced. I have not actually done specifically a decibel test on it, but it's a good quality system, and really until or unless we get to a point where we're spending money to have professional audio engineering with stuff trucked in, we're kind of at the upper end of what we can do with it. But I do think that what we did this year in terms of spreading the speakers out further Because that's been one of our major challenges with it in the past, is that we can only turn the speaker volume up so far without getting feedback on the mic. And so by spreading the speakers out further, we raised the volume of what we could actually project. So we're gonna keep doing that and keep trying to keep the cables dry. We're gonna get this formula dialed in.
Yeah, we also, maybe I'm misremembering, Dan, but I think we explored, seeing if there is a local sound person who did, I think beginning the new year. They weren't available this date, but it's something we always are kind of trying to fine tune. When these aren't major budget events. We have to be mindful of that, but we know sound matters, so we're always kind of looking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will say though, it's not listed up here, but the Portland Power Pep Band came out for a second year. And that has been a really amazing addition. Like they're adding so much with that. And actually I should reach out to them and see about getting them on for Milwaukie Fest. I bet they would come out and play with us. New power supply for the tree worked well. This is our first year not having access to the inside of City Hall. So hats off to Public Works and specifically our facilities team for that. They did a fantastic job getting that set up. And also the electrician who came out to wire it had a great idea for basically how to redesign the control panel in there. So now it literally is just flipping a switch. Whereas in the past, there was kind of a sequence of things that you needed to, just like a light switch. It's not like a light switch. It is, in fact, a residential grade light switch. It's great. And Freem, who I have spoken with recently about their involvement in our events, is very interested in partnering next year, which is fantastic since we're going to be dropping roughly 1,500 people on their doorstep. So it is much better that they're excited about that than not excited about that. We don't know yet exactly what partnership is going to look like. I think once we get through their opening and once we get into really planning for this kicks off in about August, I think we'll have a better notion of what that collaboration looks like. But again, they're very excited to be community partners on this, and for their location, I mean, there's just nobody closer. So,
on the subject of Frame. I'll say for the benefit of the counselors and advance who doesn't know, I did reach out to them this week about their opening date because I'm trying to plan a personal trip and I did not want to miss their opening. And so what I learned is that, and it seems pretty reliable, pretty definite, is that they will not be having an opening event in March. They will have some kind of soft opening events, maybe multiple ones, the week of March 31st. And their actual official grand opening is likely to be the week of April 7th. But in any event, it's not going to be before April.
good to know.
So sharing that for everyone.
Yep. Another piece that I guess anything on Umbrella Parade before we roll through there?
No,
Hey, one quick thing. Bullhorn is always a cheap, inexpensive insurance backup solution that will help if things go completely awry.
That's a great point, Counselor, and well taken. We do have one, and we will make sure that it's out there next year.
Yep.
Thank you.
good point. I loved the skater. We had bikes new this year and we had a skater
We did have
this
yeah.
year. And I thought this is a disaster, so there's gonna be accidents, there's gonna be falling, and he was amazingly in control of those skates.
Lot to like there. I just love this event. I just think it's so cool that people continue to find new ways to innovate, find new ways to decorate their umbrellas, different costumes. I'm seeing more costumes now, it feels like, than we used to see. What a cool thing. What a neat thing that we have.
Yeah.
Solstice, we do a winter solstice event every year. This year we did it on the date of the solstice, which is pretty cool. Saturday, December 21st, 2024. Bike enthusiasm continues to be a challenge. Stop me if you've heard this before. You have? Great. Okay, so we're going to skip over that and just say that we are going to continue to collaborate with Bike Milwaukie to encourage folks to bike down there.
Well, you added some bike parking, right?
We did,
and
yes.
Was that used?
It was not, no, but it was very cheap, which is good. So I think that as we continue to encourage this, continue to push for it, and continue to have it understood that like bike parking in some capacity is a part of Milwaukie events moving forward. And people will get used to the idea. I still don't know how successful we're ever gonna be getting people to bike down at night in December.
Right, right.
So that, you know, if we go through another year of this and the city is down, I think it's like a grand total of like $105 or something. If we're down another $105 this year, maybe we don't throw good money after bad next year. But this particular one, is not what I would say is really like the test case for that. I think something that's more marginal, Earth Day, which is coming up the last weekend of April, would be, I think, a better example of something like this, where, you know, hey, sure enough, the weather is starting to turn, but it might still be a little chilly, or if we get rained on or whatever else, will people come out for it? I'll say for Arbor Day last year, I apologize, I'm getting a just turn that off. For Arbor Day last year, we did have bike parking, and while I was not at the event, what I was told is that it was very heavily used.
Oh, yeah, it was.
So I think the issue isn't that people aren't willing to use active transportation. I think the issue is that people aren't willing to use active transportation when there's a snow watch on. At least not as willing. We brought in saunas this year from our friends at Sauna Glow. Little hit or miss. I think that it was an interesting idea. I don't know that we'll necessarily try to replicate it in the future, but one thing with the Milwaukie Events program is that one of the things that it has the capacity to do well is to really showcase our businesses and showcase just neat things about our community. And with Sauna Glow opening up and saying, hey, we would like to come down and participate. I met with the owners and they said, great, well, what are your ideas? What does this look like? So again, I don't know that they're necessarily wanting to do that this coming year. I don't know that we necessarily want to try to replicate that. It was a neat idea. We brought in those portable saunas, and I'm glad and I'm glad that we tried it. One thing that went extremely well, I don't mind saying, is 3 E's. So for anybody unfamiliar with Milwaukie Bay Park, it's on the other side of a state highway. And so we have this problem where we're trying to get people across the highway in the dark, often kind of bad weather. And we have a pedestrian crossing system that is great, all things considered, for the normal volume of traffic on that, but is just in no way up to having the roughly 2,000 people who come to this event every year crossing back and forth. So we tried different things in the past. One year we had CERT out there with us, and for several years we had CERT out there with us, and they finally said, you know, hey, it doesn't feel safe for our crossing guards to be out here anymore on 99. So they withdrew. Then we tried to do it with city staff, and that was fine, but we ran into some of the same problems that year. That was last year, not 24, but 23. We also tried closing some of the crosswalks in an effort to, like, in coordination with ODOT, to try to direct people to safer crossings. What it turns out happens is that people will just cross with or without the crossing signal. Hey, cool. So we don't do that anymore. This year, we went after a 2-pronged approach. We brought in a shuttle, which was actually from the Milwaukie Community Center, and CPRD worked with us on that. And that was they charged us labor for that. They didn't charge us gas or maintenance or any of the stuff that you might normally expect to see. And so we had a shuttle running from the parking lot, what's sometimes called the Metro lot, across from Historic City Hall, down to the base of the exit ramp at the boat ramp. So the people who had any kind of mobility impairment, or for whatever reason felt that they wanted to just take a ride down there rather than walking, had that option. So we did a piece we did some work to address the equity issue around this and the access issue around it. And then separately from that, we brought in the Milwaukie Police Department, who parked through the night 2 or 3 different vehicles right there at the top of that ramp, and got, I think, over a dozen stops made of drivers who were driving irresponsibly. It is the 3 E's there. There was, and I apologize because I cannot for the life of me remember which officer I was talking to, but I said, you know, we've tried all these different things, and he said, well, there's engineering, or there's education, there's engineering, and there's enforcement. And it sounds to me like we have unfortunately reached that third E. But it's working. And I mean, we didn't have, that I heard of, any, near misses. Nobody to my knowledge has ever been hit crossing there for this event. But also, it seems like had we not come up with some way to cool down the tension there, it's just a dangerous situation. I mean, last year, again, 2023, we had someone drive through the crowd the wrong way down the exit ramp because he insisted that he needed to be able to see the river in his car. So this year, nobody did that. And I think that that's because we had marked police vehicles there.
And so the police did that, but did we still have people staffing the crossing?
Sure didn't, because what turned out was happening there is that it was giving pedestrians, as far as we can tell, a false sense of security. Because ultimately, I mean, I remember standing out there with the CERT crew leader at the time. Oh, why can't I not think of her name? But a couple of years ago, she called me up and said, "Hey, Dan, come out here with me. I'm on that south side at Washington and 99, that south side crosswalk. The problem is that cars stack up at the light all the way down Washington, like down past 21st. And so they're waiting to get through, but with people coming and going. So she and I stood down there while she held up a traffic baton in front of this, I don't know, F700, whatever, this giant pickup truck with its floodlights on. The guy's leaning out the window, screaming at us, calling us everything but children of God. I mean, it's not a safe environment for anybody to be in. And it turns out that the thing that calms that down is red and blue lights. And I wish that there was a different, solution to that. And I'm grateful that our police department made themselves available to support the event and keep our pedestrians safe. Hey, so that's the solstice. That went pretty well. We're gonna try to find some drier wood next year. That's not up there. That doesn't really affect anybody but staff directly, but we're gonna get some drier wood for next year.
Can I ask, a couple years ago, Anne, our former city manager, brought sort of started a conversation about the vendors there and sort of the, I guess the sort of, are we favoring certain vendors or I guess my question is, are we getting any remuneration out of what people make there?
I don't think so. I mean, so the issue is this, right? That is an event that was largely pioneered by the Llewellyn Neighborhood District Association. They have a tremendous amount of infrastructure investment in it. Everything from the fire barrels, which belong to a member of that neighborhood association, to the volunteer infrastructure that they have in place. I looked at it a few years ago, and to duplicate that effort that we're getting for free to the city, it would cost me about $7,000 in hiring. We would put on the line about $7,000 in hiring food trucks to come in. So what I would say is right now, if they sell out or if they don't sell a single hot dog, it costs the city $0. And in the future, if and when Llewellyn decides that they don't want to come play ball anymore, then we run the risk of being out money if the event gets snowed out, being out like a significant amount of money if the event gets snowed out. So while we are not directly making money back off of it, Llewellyn is, or one of our neighborhood associations, right, is taking on the risk for it not going well. We also, I would say that we have a pretty excellent partner for this event in Beer Store Milwaukie. Their owner, who I was going to thank in a later slide, but who I'll say right now, has, I don't think, failed to show up not one time when the events program has asked that crew for something, brings his personal generator down there and powers most of the event every year. So while we are not making money on it directly, the system that we have in place is such that we're saving a significant amount of money that we would otherwise need to come up with.
I do know, I was unable to attend this year because I had surgery the night before, but I do remember last year, Dan, we did Another NDA, I think, had a stall and sold some things, so we are open to additional vendors.
And we have floated that, I'm sorry, Emily.
No, no, keep going.
And we have floated that, so Ardenwell Johnson Creek has been out the last 2 years, 2024 and 2023. And as a part of that, they have been selling various kinds of swag from Ardenwald, hand warmers, light up toys, that kind of thing. People seem to really enjoy it. We have opened it up to other neighborhood associations, but at a certain point, you kind of reach this place where like, okay, well, there's food and beverages are taken care of, hand warmers and light up toys.
What else?
What else is there? If somebody wants to come down and run the sauna for us, we could maybe talk about that. But no, I mean, we're open to other ideas, and when I have opened it up to other NDAs, what I've gotten back is, well, we might like to do something, but we don't know what. Okay, great. Well, think about it, and if you do think of something, let me know. And in the same way that it was like 2 weeks before the event that the folks at Sonic Globe reached out, if a neighborhood association reaches out and says, we've got this idea, but in good faith, I can say, let's talk about it. Let's figure out how to incorporate it. I would say that with this is our second year of partnering with Clackamas Water and Environment Services. And they have sponsored the porta potties at the event for the last 2 years, which they seem to really appreciate being a treatment plant sponsoring porta potties. And great. Thank you to them, because that is, again, money that we can then spend on other parts of the event. And you know, frankly, those rental costs for the tents and everything, for the lights, for all of it, it's only going up. So, yeah, solstice. So I know I've got Milwaukie Fest is a lot of what we're here to talk about, but let me say right here, Council President Anderson? Yeah, Council President Anderson. So you raised your hand.
Sounds weird to me too. The question that I've got, just a few things here. With Sonaglow and having the saunas there, I heard from a neighbor, we were talking about this, about how that's how they found out about Sonaglow and they were really excited about it. So while not all of your experimentation is going to be a success, I think it was really good for our new small business. And I think it's a good way to promote our small businesses. And I love that ingenuity. So I would encourage you to keep doing that despite any hiccups you might have. Other thing that I will flag is I think one thing that we have to think about as a council, that McLaughlin crossing will be a challenge, and it won't just be a challenge for our big events, but as we start to have a really exciting Milwaukie Bay Park, if we've got kids walking over there for the splash pad or a concert, making sure that we have a crossing that pedestrians can use, and especially young kids and families can use, is something we should think about. So talking with ODOT and starting up that conversation, I think is something we should have on the radar.
Well, and I think, Mr. Council President, that one thing that is, please correct me if I'm mistaken, folks in the room, but part of the Kellogg Dam removal is a pedestrian underpass. So that's not going to solve every single problem. There is going to be someone who decides that they can run across McLaughlin Boulevard in the dark in December. But by and large, I think that's going to address a lot of the issue, albeit several years from now. So
I mean, it does help for the people who come on light rail, and I do know people come on light rail, I've seen it. You know, people from that south end of downtown, people who park, like, you know, at the farmer's market, or, you know, from this end of town, are probably not gonna walk down there, cross under.
it's true, but I will say that a ton, I mean, truly the hotspot of vehicle pedestrian conflict during that event is the southbound turn onto 99 off of Washington. And again, it's not 364 nights out of the year, it's not an issue, but it's just that particular night, it's the holidays, people are trying to get to where they're going, it's dark, they're tired, they've got their stresses, and now why is there an army of people blocking the crosswalk in both directions? And it continues to be something that we're gonna work on. I'm so excited for that particular spot not to be a flashpoint anymore though. So Anything else on Solstice before we roll on?
How did you see, no, I wanna just know how you saw council president's hand, because I don't see it.
Under participants, there was a drop down.
Oh,
that-
okay, got it, got it.
Right.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, so the Milwaukie Community Events Fund, we started this last year with the retirement of Carefree Sunday. We wanted to do something to support and celebrate the diversity of Milwaukie. The first round of those awards went out in fall of last year. Normally these award periods, we're piloting this right now. Normally these award periods these application periods conclude January 31st and July 31st. This particular year, we had just like a relatively low turnout in January, and some of that, as we know, the pilot continues to be a major source of news for huge swaths of our community. And I think because there isn't a January pilot, what we might end up doing, and I'm talking to the Equity Steering Committee about this, but is just shifting that deadline back to the end of February so that we have a chance to advertise it, so that we have a chance to put out there like, hey, this exists. Anyway, this year, that application period concludes on February 28th rather than January 31st. And so we'll review those at the March ESC meeting and get those awards out the door. We did have two award recipients that were selected. Vita 33, who early last November held a Dia de los Muertos celebration, and Spoken Word Books, who are that team over there is right now in the process of hosting a discussion series on 3 different books. One highlighting immigrants, I believe specifically undocumented immigrants to the United States. One the indigenous peoples of America, and one for, gosh, I cannot believe I'm going to forget the last group right now. I believe people with disabilities is the last group. But anyways, these 3 reading and discussion groups, and these were the winners that were selected. The idea is that people will put on events and will put on just more things in our community, and that rather than the city specifically programming this $8,000, there's a little bit more flexibility, and it gives some of that direct decision-making authority to our Equity Steering Committee. So the applications are now open. For more information, milwaukieoregon.gov/events/MCEF, or send me an email or give me a call, and I'd be happy to talk about it. Okay.
And that book discussion series, I did remember seeing that when it was first announced as what they had won for, but I haven't seen promotion of it. Is it being promoted?
It is being promoted. It's being promoted through their website, through their social media, and it's the first of those. It was originally supposed to take place last fall, which is why they applied in July. But what ended up happening with it was that I think they had a little bit of a staffing shift, and with just starting a new business, there are stops and starts, and anyhow, they had to move it to the spring, and they wrote to us and they said, hey, we can give you the money back. And I said, well, you still gonna do the event? Said, yeah.
So are we promoting it like in Jason's Friday emails and stuff?
I don't think that we are. There's been kind of a funny line, and I don't know, Emma, how much of this conversation, but just between like pushing private business, but also I don't know that there's been an official anything down on that.
I do, you're right on that, Dan. I do think, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a criteria of this, that the events have to be open to the public and free.
They do.
And because of that, I wouldn't have any heartburn about advertising it. So I think that's a great no, Mayor, and we can be promoting this and the rest of these channels.
I'll get that back to the team.
I got a question too, because I know this fund is specific to supporting, celebrating diversity in Milwaukee. What are, like, is there other funds for, like, Hector Campbell put on that Halloween thing, right? In Oakland Park, they had to get something because they initially tried for this, but because it wasn't supporting and celebrating the diversity of Milwaukee specifically, they didn't get it. They went to Celebrate Milwaukee to get the grant. But is there, like, for a general, because that does bring community together. Is there
Absolutely.
together?
No, I mean, there's the annual funds that are paid to the neighborhood district associations, and they are, I mean, not they're able to do whatever they want, but there are some fairly broad guidelines on what they can spend that money on. My understanding is that the majority of our neighborhood associations at this point have not that they have so much money, but that they have money in savings and money available in savings, and that we often see these go not unspent, but not fully spent every year. So what I would say is that those are available. I know that several of the NDAs have acted as effectively grant bodies in the past. A conversation that we had at the time, I know that there was some frustration around the traffic control measures that were requested for that. And I mean, what I would say is that the city, to the extent that we're able to limit regulation of these and limit obstruction of these events, we do. I mean, that is something that we do very intentionally, and our engineering department is on board with that. And also part of the job of our engineering department in reviewing these is to make sure, like, hey, we are actually being safe with them, right? So I mean, I don't think there is not another fund like this that is just, hey, if you want to do an event, doesn't matter who you are, come to the city and apply for it. But I would say too, it's something like an $80,000 biennial events budget. So for, you know, we're doing what we can with what's out there. I appreciate it. Anything else on the community events fund before we roll on?
Have you got applications?
We've got applications. We have 6 applications currently. And so it's looking like a good crop this year. I don't want to name names, but I'm excited. I'm excited by some of the things that we're seeing coming across. And I think that the next time that I come to talk to this group, and I imagine, I don't think that's on the calendar, but I imagine probably April or May would be appropriate, that I can say, hey, here's what happened with that. Look, a goose wearing sunglasses. Hello, hello. There he is, right there. Milwaukie Fest. So Milwaukie Fest is coming up. I'm wearing a button right now that is not from Milwaukie Fest. It's from Milwaukie Festival Days, something we used to do here. And this isn't that, but it is inspired by that. Milwaukie Fest, the second weekend in July. We're gonna have 3 days of celebration here in Milwaukie. July 11th, there's gonna be a movie in the park and live music, which is also the first night of Porch Fest. We're working with our arts committee right now on what that might look like and what that collaboration might look like. July 12th, we're gonna have a Main Street festival. So up and down Main Street, we're going to have all kinds of entertainment and vendors and just booths with people with information and activities for the community. It's going to be really a pretty fantastic day, and I'm going to come right back to that. July 13th, we're having an enhanced farmers market, and CMI is really running the show on that, but they do their Children's Day every year, and this is going to be their Children's Day, which means that they're going to have face painters and balloon animals. They're going to have a cherry pie baking contest. Since Milwaukie, you gotta have cherry pie. They have some additional musical acts who are coming out, and then I believe that they're looking at doing some kind of a like a passport system for the day, and what that ultimately comes out to being, that's still being discussed. Main Street Festival, though, I do want to talk about this because every single day I come in here to work and I take the stairs up. I take the stairs up most days. I'm trying to be better about it. But I take the stairs up to the second floor, and on the way up to the second floor, I pass by a big blown up pamphlet for the program for the City Hall opening. I look at it. I look at all of the different organizations that were here in 1938 for the opening of that City Hall, and I think about, you know, what it must have been like to pull from these different parts of the community. And I think we can build on that. I think we can do that, and we are doing that. And something that I'm so excited about with this festival is that we have, I mean, sure enough, CMI is in. We have several of our local businesses and our business owners who are working on 2 different planning committees with me right now. Parks District in working with us Friday night. We've got the Milwaukie Mile, which is a not-for-profit fundraising run that last year donated something like $1,300, maybe $1,500. Nick Hess, if you see this, please forgive me, but donated over $1,000 to the Milwaukie High School cross-country team. The Milwaukie Mile is going to be taking place in the morning of July 12th. The Milwaukie
So
Parks.
that's a run?
That's a run.
That's a public run?
That's a public run.
Okay,
The Milwaukie.
where do they run?
I don't know that. They last year they ran up and down the trolley trail. I don't know for sure if they're going to do that same route again this year. The Milwaukie Parks Foundation is going to be out there with us. And this is, I believe, going to be, we're working out the timing on it, but it looks very much like this is going to be the day that they do their annual duck race. We've got the Milwaukie Environmental Stewards group coming out. We've got the Community Emergency Response team coming out. We've got a lot of interest from the Milwaukie Lutheran Church down on Lake Road with volunteering and helping to get volunteers out here to staff this. I mean, those are some of the groups that are going to be involved in this, and we're continuing to accrue more. I expect to see Historic Milwaukie out there in some capacity. I would be surprised if we didn't have other neighborhood associations out there in some capacity. We're going to have different city departments, including representatives of Public Works and our City Hall administrative team, which is also, as you know, the Office of Records Management. They're going to be out there. I want to see the Milwaukie Historical Society out there, although to be honest, I've been late in sending them an invitation. But we're seeing all of these groups coming in and bringing in all of these cool things that they're already doing and building on this. Our friends at Sapphire down just off of the plaza are helping us with web promotion for it. I had a meeting with one of their executives week before last, and he's got some great ideas about ways that we can really amplify this and blow it up. I'm expecting to see a very large version of that poster or something like it suspended from the side of City Hall, suspended actually from both sides of City Hall, so that folks on Main Street and McLaughlin can see it. I mean, we are gonna let people know that Milwaukie is here. And listen, I gotta say, it's gonna be a great party, and I could not be more excited to be part of throwing it. We're doing pretty well budget-wise on it too, and we'll have more time to talk about this, but I would say that right now we're about 45% of our way to our $10,000 fundraising goal for this, or sponsorship goal. And our two biggest sponsors on that right now, and there's a blown up version of this available that I'll make sure that we all have access to. But our two biggest cash sponsors right now are TriMet and Beer Store Milwaukie, and they have both come in at the major sponsor level. So they're really helping us to make sure that this is the event that we want it to be. Emma, I think, did a really good job earlier on with making sure with the ice cream and the sprinkles analogy. I can get you ice cream for $10,000, which is what's budgeted for this event. We're going to get you some pretty good sprinkles at 15,000, which we're effectively at right now. But we're going for the cherry and the hot fudge, and I think we can get there. This sponsorship recruiting is continuing right now. What I would say is that from council and from anybody who sees this, if there are businesses in the Milwaukie area who people have a connection to, who would like to help to bring this great community event to life, would like to get in on the ground floor of it, this is that opportunity. We have our sponsorship sheet here. This is the back side of it.
Is that on the website?
It is on the website. It's available on the website, which is listed here at the bottom, milwaukieoregon.gov/events/MilwaukeeFest. We should see about getting a snappier URL than that, but we'll come back to it. Anybody who does want to be involved or who's interested, we have our sponsorship levels laid out there, and we're continuing to do proactive public outreach on that as well. Just so the council knows what's going on with it, we're continuing monthly meetings. I'm continuing monthly meetings with our planning committees. We have a North End Planning Committee and a South End Planning Committee for that day, as well as checking in with our partners at the Parks Department, Parks District and Celebrate Milwaukie Inc. We're finalizing the logistics on it, which is to say making sure that we've got all the porta potties and road signs and dumpsters and all the stuff that people don't notice when it's working well and people really notice when it's not. Our public awareness campaign, we've got plans specifically built for actions that we're taking in February, March, April, May, June, July, of how it is that we're going to keep this rolled out, and how it is that we're going to keep this on people's minds, not people's radars. And also recruiting performers and other entertainment. So just this week, for instance, I had a conversation with Angel Ocasio, who does a fantastic combination of close-in magic and ukulele playing, and we've had him at a couple of different things around the city here previously. He's going to come to our children's stage at 11 o'clock on July 12th, and we're filling in other spots, but that's just one that we just got this week, and well, actually, to be fair, that was on Friday, but within the last week, and I'm so excited to have him on board. There's a ton that goes into standing up an event like this. We have found a way to provide liability insurance and workers' compensation for our volunteers. So if somebody comes out and takes time out of their Saturday or whichever other day to come and help us with this and gets injured, which is not something that we've had happen at these events in the past, but if it does, then we're going to be able to provide some kind of assistance and coverage for them. We're looking at our finance department is shifting the way it does some of its short form service agreement contracts, which is going to streamline this process. In the past, one of the major hangups with these large events was having to do like individual contracts that could get into the several page length with these performers. And if what you're really trying to do is to highlight some local talent, gosh, I mean, my garage band, I don't have a garage band. It'd be a lot cooler if I did, but I don't. My garage band doesn't have $1 million in liability insurance. Okay, well, I guess I can't play at Milwaukie Fest. Just kidding, we're fixing that so that it's not a barrier, so that it's not an impediment. So on the front end of this, on the back end of it, this is all progressing forward. And I have to say, it's exactly where I would like to see it for it being February. But I'm just gonna say again, we're gonna have a great party, and I hope to see council there, and I hope that the community comes out. We're expecting about 3,500 people over the course of the weekend. So again, just for any potential sponsors out there, people will see your name.
Yeah. So we're not gonna use Milwaukie Bay Park?
Not as such. There's
I
just
thought there was a float.
there was some discussion, and we'd floated some floats, and I'm not totally opposed to that. I think that what I'm running into at this point is recognizing that getting this thing stood up at all is taking quite a bit of time and effort. There could be room for that. I think that might be a little ambitious for this first year, but if we get there, great, and if we don't, then it gives us room to grow, particularly in future years when we have a more built out Milwaukie Bay Park.
Well, I was gonna say, there may be partners who, and there's Human Access Project who does, who no longer does the big float in Portland and might want to help with that. Has had some engagement with Milwaukie Bay Park before. Anyway, I was excited about the float idea, floating from Elk Rock to the boat ramp or whatever. And I will say, just as a member of the board of Milwaukie Parks Foundation, if there's first off, your staff report, I just want to give credit where credit is due. The duck race is a co-event of the Parks Foundation and the North Clackamas Watersheds Council. But if there's not something in the park, it's kind of a bust. Unless you have something that your south end of downtown is doing that will feed over to like lead the Pied Piper of people.
So here's this, we do and we will.
Yeah.
I mean, like we have so. Listen, we talked before about Milwaukie as a wrestling town. We're getting this finalized where this is happening. It very much looks like, and the idea is that the south end stage, which is going to be on the block between Jefferson and Washington. Jefferson and Washington? That doesn't sound right. No, that's right. Cha-cha-cha block. Yeah, Jefferson and Washington. We're going to have a performance stage down there in addition to it very much looks like a wrestling ring. And we'll have folks down there, both of our stages, and I believe our partners at Frame as well, will make that announcement. We're working out the timing and the day for it. Hey folks, this is a great opportunity to go down to the riverfront to see it. Also, there'll be tabling there at the event throughout the day. So in terms of people getting interested, people donating to it, buying into it, there'll be lots of opportunities to do that throughout the day. I hear what you're saying. Again, my original plan for this had included lining it up with the NCPRD giant concert. And for a variety of reasons that ended up not working out. In fact, that concert is not occurring this year. But I think in terms of getting people into downtown and trying to channel them to it, we're not going to have a better opportunity this summer than Milwaukie Fest. I'll float the float idea. Let me see what I can do with that.
Yeah, I mean, and I just think, I mean, hopefully other events in downtown will have a break, a half-hour break when the duck race is supposed
And I think
to happen.
that would be the idea.
Yeah, competing,
That would be the idea, is that we're not competing with it.
Yeah.
Hey, if y'all wanna go see a show,
Yeah.
now's the time.
Yeah.
Get down there.
Yeah. I mean, the ducks will be sold largely ahead of that.
But still, it's good to have the turnout.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I one of the greatest challenges of this is finding a way to coordinate the community effort around it in such a way that people aren't stepping on each other's toes. It's the first year, some of that's going really well, some of it there's lessons learned already, but that is something, to your point, Mayor, that I'm extremely cognizant of. We don't want to have, it would be easy to get too much noise going and kind of drown each other out. So. Anyway, that's about it for me. MilwaukeeOregon.gov/events/Milwaukee Fest. For anyone who has not been there, please visit. And for anyone who's looking for that sponsorship page, it's right there on the website. My name is Dan Harris. I use they, them pronouns. I'm your events and emergency management coordinator. I can be reached at events@MilwaukeeOregon.gov. Hey, look at Dogwood.
So remind me, when we established the events fund, did we stop providing separate funding for Juneteenth and Pride, or they have?
doubled it, in fact.
Okay.
Yeah, so they used to receive $500 from the city each year, and they are now receiving $1,000 from the city each year. And with that, I know that we have, I believe, our leading Juneteenth organizer identified, and I have some emails out right now trying to make sure who exactly is going to be organizing Pride. Those events, it's been the position of the city manager's office historically that it's important that those be supported by the city but led by the community.
Right.
And so, I mean, what I've always said is like, I can organize a Pride celebration. I'm qualified to do that. I have no business at all saying what does or doesn't happen at Juneteenth. That being said, for people who are organizing it, I can help you. I can help you do a permit. I can help you do a site plan. I can help you make sure that we get materials ordered. So it's something that we support, but not something that we directly organize.
And there's not an existing committee for.
No, not as such.
Pride.
Thank you all very much.
Any questions? No? No other questions? Okay.
We'll do this again. Thank you.
Manager to talk to us about houseless services.
Yes, Dan is always a tough act to follow, so I won't be anywhere near as entertaining. But good evening, council, and it's nice to have, we don't often have audience at study sessions, so it's great, we've got 2 community members in the room. I'm here today to give an update on houseless and behavioral health services at the city. We've been doing these updates quarterly, and one question I want to ask council to kind of ponder as we go through is I can keep that up. I think if you like kind of getting this information sort of once a quarter, we can keep providing it, but I think that quarterly cadence really started during a period of some intense sort of grant work and stand-up efforts. And so there might be a different cadence you'd like to get this information on, or a different way you'd like to get the information. And so I'd love to end on that note. But what I'm going to do tonight is run through 5 different kind of activity areas of ways that city staff and departments are supporting behavioral health and houseless services work. And then as again I said, we'll end with some questions and discussion, including that question about the cadence of future updates. So I want to start, I know we're very cold right now, so it's hard to remember a time when we had to operate a cooling center. But just to remind you, back in the spring, the county, Clackamas County, opened up what they call their city-led initiatives grant program. It was their way to get supportive housing services dollars out to cities and organizations working with cities to do work that supported houseless folks and behavioral health work. And we submitted 5 different proposals to that, 2 of which were funded and a bonus one. I'll point out which ones those are as we go through. But one of the things we got funded was this 2-year pilot of an extended hours cooling center in our Leading library. It's $30,000 a year for 2 years. Is it a year or is it for the 2 years? I need to look that up. I don't recall either. I do know in year 1 we spent much less than that. So that IGA and contract, I will say, is still in progress.
Really?
We're very close. But there was sort of it's coming from the county. They did have a lot of grants and IGAs to write, but we have their commitment that they will backdate, the receipts for things that we did this summer. When do we mobilize this? Now, it's important to say the library is actually always a cooling center when it's open. And the hottest part of the day is usually during library operating hours. So it's always a place when it's open for people to seek refuge. But what we're able to do with this funding is staff it later into the evening on those days in the summer where it stays in the high 90s or even 100s way into the evening. So we are able to stay open until 10 p.m., which is sometimes 3 additional hours, sometimes 4 additional hours at the library, sometimes 5. Our criteria is sort of a couple-fold. We look at the National Weather Service, and if the heat risk is designated as major or extreme, that's our flag to say, okay, let's go out and see if we have staff available who want to work it. And then we have a list of wonderful staff members and a few counselors who volunteer to come in and work that additional shift. If they're managers or non-represented staff, they truly are doing it just as additional hours in their week. If they are represented staff, they can do it as comp time or overtime. We found, I think, a sweet spot this year with 3 employees needing to be there, at least one of whom was a manager. There's a chance we could reduce that down to 2, but I felt good with 3. 3 kind of let someone could be on a bathroom break and it still felt like you had a buddy in there keeping things going. So here's our numbers from year 1. We met that threshold for 8 nights, and we're able to find staffing all those 8 nights. 72 total people through the doors. It's an average of 9 per night. I think the busiest night we had was like 21 people. It was on some of those longer heat waves when by the end of like 4 continuous days, it's just staying so hot. That's when we saw kind of our biggest numbers. Really much gratitude to Brent and the library team, who aren't always the people who staff it. We really wanted to make sure this is not a library initiative, this is a city initiative, but they are graciously opening their space to us. And just have such a great, we're gonna talk in a little bit about the amazing work library does all the time in supporting our vulnerable communities. And I think they've done a great job setting the example for the rest of city staff. We are exploring some building modifications that were value engineered out of the library design project. So really a gate that would enable us to feel more comfortable just having the lobby and the community room open, which might then allow us to open this to some external volunteers. So if maybe we don't have enough staffing, but we have Rotarians or other folks who want to come and open this, we could. I will share that I got a request or a question from a community member during our MLK weekend cold snap, saying, hey, it's a holiday, the library's closed, can you open? And I so wish I could have. I don't have the budget to call staff in on a holiday to work that. And again, if I maybe had a building that enabled it, we could have staffed with volunteers, but we just weren't equipped to. But it's something we're exploring, and we're looking at our facilities budget and our capital dollars to see if we can make that work. Any questions on the cooling center?
I'll just say that as somebody who, helped a couple nights, thought the library had it set up to really work seamlessly. It was very easy. And the only complaint was that it was super cold. We are a little overcooling. We had one woman who actually, she's like, yeah,
I'm freezing.
I'm freezing. I don't want to go out there, but I'm freezing.
It's too funny after so many years of HVAC issues. It's like, yeah, we just can't get it right.
What was the turnout for that?
It was, we had averaged about 9 people a night. The most busy night we had was 21 people. All right. So the next, I can't see my headers up there, but I think this says
Something out.
behavioral health outreach. There we go. City support and outreach services. I'm gonna have to have you move it back. Sorry, Nicole.
That's okay.
So on this slide, I want to talk a little bit about the amazing work of Glenn Sekonic and our behavioral health team. So as a reminder, behavioral health resources we have available to the city. We have one actual behavioral health specialist employed by the city, and that is Glenn. Then we also have Don Holden, who does not work for the city. He works for Love One, but he is the Milwaukie specific houseless liaison. Now, you might remember there was a deal negotiated by former city manager over with the county that they would fund a embedded behavioral health or houseless or housing support services liaison in the community. For a couple of years, we worked with Central City Concern, had some struggles kind of maintaining staffing in that position, and decided mutually to part ways with Central City Concern. The county did a kind of a mini RFP process last year to find who the new partner would be, and Love One was the partner selected. Now, we were already working with Dawn, which is great. We love Dawn. Dawn has slid into that county-funded Love One position. That does mean we are still kind of owed a to-be-hired Love One houseless liaison to replace Dawn's old. I'm told that there are plans in the works to do that. We just don't have the person in place yet. But when that is filled, we should have 3 folks working in behavioral health and houseless support dedicated to the city.
So where's Dawn?
Dawn is still with Love One. So he was always with Love One. He moved over into that county funded position, and now Love One needs to recruit to replace Dawn and be a non-county funded liaison position.
And is that other position funded by us?
Nope, I think it's just funded by Love One. Yeah. So just some stats. Glenn keeps great records of sort of his touch points with the community. This is since March of last year, so kind of a 1 year and 11-month snapshot. He supported more than 200 new individuals. He was deployed to scenes, so this means they got a call and the police went to respond, and he went with them more than 60 times. He was deployed solo, so we got a call through 911, but they determined just Glenn could respond around 10 times. And he's documented more than 400 engagement notes in that less than a year time period. So, it's just kind of incredible output for a very small amount of people. You're going to see even more amazing stats on the next slide about our library outreach, but I just can't say enough about what a resource Glenn and Dawn have been to the community. Just a couple notes on camping and houseless related updates. Glenn and Dawn participated in the county's point in time homelessness count in 2024. And on that night, they counted 11 individuals experiencing houselessness in the city of Milwaukee.
What is the city doing with the ones that come in downtown Milwaukee that need some help? and her out
We
here.
don't actually take public comment at this meeting.
I'm sorry.
This is a study session.
Forgive me.
Yeah. But feel free to.
I can talk to you
us
after.
later.
I did also want to note that on February 5th, so this is just last week, and I want to appreciate the mayor, really, you brought this to my attention. There was a campsite in Kronberg Park. Dawn, when we first found out about that, Dawn and Glenn went down and spoke to the individual living, camping there, and gave them some resources, kind of helped them to move along. There was a lot of trash left behind from that campsite. Kronberg's an interesting part of the city where we own part of it, and CPRD maintains part of it. There's some that's railroad property, there's some that's ODOT property. The trash in the campsite was really on our property, but it was an interesting moment for us because we aren't equipped as a city to do major cleanup efforts. We can do some minor stuff, but when this was a lot of trash and debris left behind. Love One, again, an amazing partner at no cost to the city, did the trash cleanup for us on February 5th. And then our code enforcement specialist, Tim Sawyers, has been negotiating an IGA with Metro. Metro provides some of that cleanup support for small cities who, like us, don't have the sort of staff or the equipment to do it. Just kind of keeping going on our community outreach piece. Oh, Councilor Anderson, I see your hand up.
Can I just to help understand city processes? I saw someone sleeping in front of Axle Tree the other day. What in our current system would be the process for addressing an issue like that? Or what does it look like when we're dispensing services?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what you could do is, alert police non-emergency, or really you can call me. We will talk to our PD. If Glenn is working, Glenn or Dawn would go down and speak with that individual, get to know them, show a lot of compassion, make sure they know about the resources and the shelters that are available in the area. They have the ability to give out bus vouchers and ways to get to various shelters. We do have a camping ordinance, and there are rules against camping in public right of way, but we always do, outreach and compassion to first. We're not citing, I think Glenn might have some set on I don't think he's ever cited. I think it's all about support and helping people move on, which is exactly what happened at the Kronberg situation. So then, there's usually then a note to follow up. Glenn also tries to get contact information for individuals so he can stay in touch. He can check in on them. He can see how they're doing. We do have, I'm not the expert, and I'm happy to follow up on some things, but I do know there are lots of shared data services too, where social services folks kind of can keep notes and make sure there's a network of care sort of helping and supporting folks. I'm looking at Brent. Much more to add to this, yes.
The only thing I would add is anytime I see someone in that situation, I'm actually directly texting Don, Glenn, Brandy, our police captains, chief, and that group of people, when I send a message, it really is what you described, but it could be any of those folks who are available. And it isn't really an enforcement piece. It really is checking in and sort of building the relationship, just to add with what you said. And try to connect them, but that is a process, and it doesn't always happen immediately just because somebody had.
Yes. Does that answer your question, Counselor?
That does, and it's helpful context. I mean, this is an issue that I've heard about a lot, knocking on doors and talking to community members. It's helpful context to know what it looks like on the ground. So thank you.
So then let's talk about the wonderful library. So our library is obviously an amazing space to go get knowledge and attend cool events, but really I think, our library is an important third space for many people. It's a safe place to come in from the elements and to just be and exist. There's no cost to be there. And knowing that that is sort of the haven that libraries provide, our library is probably the front line of our social services outreach right now. So just to give you some numbers, now this is only since July of 24, so now we're talking 9 months. Every Tuesday, there is the weekly outreach. You see the graphic there, 10 to noon. that has Milwaukie Police, Glen Dawn, 4D Recovery, Love One, and NAMI. NAMI stands for
National Association.
Decision meant for mental illness.
Mental Illness, thank you.
Clackamas Park.
So 78 clients have been served since July of 24 during those Tuesday outreach events. All of Brent's staff are equipped with information on resources that they can provide to folks who they see who might be in crisis or struggling or just ask for it. And they've helped 60 patrons since July. They can make electronic referrals for service through our PIT system, which I always forget what that stands for.
Patron Incident Tracking System. It is in its spots.
31 referrals made on that. They also, I think this is it's one of the simplest things we do, and yet one of the most effective things we can do to humanize these interactions and de-escalate some things is providing just some water and a snack to someone who's, who just needs some support. And they've given over 700 water bottles and granola bars at the library just since July. This is super cool. We started having our probation and parole, or the county's probation and parole mobile unit come to the library once a month. Is that right?
Yes.
113 clients have been served since that started. 11 have been put into housing, graduated treatment, or received earned discharge. So that's just been a super successful service that we started doing.
When we do these, is there any expungement resources provided?
I don't know, but I can follow up with you on that. I can tell you that it's much more broad than I even have been talking about in the past. They bring in so many different services there that people get connected. And give you a nice 1.5 minute video that my guess is if they don't have it right there, they're connecting people to it. Housing is there, other things are there. But I'd be surprised.
You would assume that probation performance.
But I'll find that answer and get it for you.
I was gonna say, there's a second Monday, I think it is, upstairs.
Yeah.
There's a flyer on our bulletin board. There's a thing down in Oregon City. It's not here in Milwaukie, but there's an expungement clinic that does, expungements, name changes, housing, eviction, clearing, eviction, like exposing evictions and stuff.
And I've definitely heard the conversation even between Don and Glenn, between the Tuesday outreach. And this, many of those same players are at both spots.
Right.
So my guess is if it's happening anyway, they're making sure people know, at least that's what I've seen them do.
Yeah, just make them aware. I would
Yeah.
assume that they're. Why they leave that out. Thank you.
And just this last fall, they started hosting Rentwell Labs at the library in partnership with Clackamas County Social Services. Anything you want to share on that one, Brent?
I don't remember the numbers, but that is a program that gives people sort of electronic lessons and training. And I know that there's rent assistance as part of it. And I know they're regularly seeing people. We're providing extra space for them and laptop computers too, so folks have that space to learn from the experts.
Actually, thanks for bringing this up. I actually have a question with that because I've been working with an individual here in Milwaukie with recent enrollment. They were at Bridges to Change. They finished there. And they're trying to find their own place. They're living in a sober living right now. But it's a huge barrier to have to get your own place, your own apartment. Is there any resources for that? Of hey, here's where we can go to.
Yeah, I'm sure of it. I don't know what they are, but this is exactly the work that Don would do. Don's gonna be that go-to contact.
Yeah.
I've heard these conversations. I've had these conversations with Don and Glenn about how do you find that low barrier entry, and they magically make it happen. It's what it feels like magic to
That'd be
me.
great.
I got Don.
Great.
Thank you.
Magic. That's maybe
I
not.
know, right? It's
It feels that way.
should be the right word though.
Now, were there any other questions on the library outreach piece before I move on from that? Okay. This next one, I apologize, I do not have much to share. I was hoping Counselor Scavenger was going to be here tonight because she has been kind of making champion of this. This is the rental assistance program housed at Clackamas Service Center, which I believe is called Milwaukie HEART. HEART is an acronym. it stands for something. Again, I was hoping she could help me out with that. What I understand is that this has been stood up and that right now the referrals to the program are coming through the Coordinated Housing Assessment, so the CHA program run by the county. But I apologize that I don't have more talking points on this tonight beyond kind of what you see here, which was what was funded through the program. And I can ask Councilor Stavanger maybe to share some additional info at our next council reports.
That'd be great. I was wondering, how many, I mean, it's early days, so they probably aren't reporting stats maybe yet, but just to make sure that is gonna happen to the county, like how, that they somehow loop back so that we know.
Yeah.
How many people they're serving.
Sure.
With rent assistance, with, food boxes, with whatever.
Yeah. This one is a direct contract between the county and the Plaquemine Service Center, but I know from our own IGA process, there's definitely, they had to commit to some reporting, and so that we can maybe get a hold of what that is. Okay, stabilization center. I think you guys know this. Be scared of our members of the public. How's that? I'm not as fun as Dan. I'm sorry.
You are.
You guys know this is a county-led project out on McBroad. There are two components. The front of the building is a 24-hour stabilization center. I was, myself and Captain Greg Elkins were both part of the RFP review process for operators for both pieces of this. The county selected Maple Star LLC, which I think also operates as Clarividia, as the operator for the stabilization center. They have experience doing this.
Which also operates what?
As Clarividia, I think is the name of the company.
Okay.
The reason they have multiple names is I believe they are in multiple states, and so it's just kind of, they needed different names to operate in different places. But they were my top choice in the RFP scoring process. They put together a very good proposal, very robust. Also my top choice was selected for the back of the house piece, which will be a 13-bed shelter, and that's going to be operated by Father's Heart, who we know very well. So I will share former council president, Councilor Massey, and Councilor Stavanger, who have been kind of our council liaison leads on this project, and myself and Chief Burdick did have a conversation with county staff at the end of last year because after that RFP process, we did not hear much. We had been doing lots of monthly calls. There was a call group talking about community engagement and the Good Neighbor Agreement. There was a call group kind of talking about program design, and they just all kind of stopped. Then we are aware now that there's been some staff turnover at the county. Adam Brown, who was sort of our main contact, left. So Mary Rumba is now the Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services at the county. I will say that, I reached out to Mary in the new year and said, we really got to restart these. We've been very consistent in our messages that we are supportive of these services coming to the city, but we do need them to be done thoughtfully in collaboration with the neighbors through a Good Neighbor Agreement, and that we especially our law enforcement partners need assurances that this is going to be a law enforcement drop-off only, at least in the early stages. Things that we verbally agreed to, we would really like to get down in writing. I heard, I hoped again today, knowing that I was giving this presentation. It sounds like we'll be resuming those calls soon to finalize this. As soon as that does pick up in earnest, I do think probably getting another update for you guys to be from the county team in the spring would be helpful. And make sure that we're also communicating with our community, our city, our residents on that as well. That's really all I have to say.
Do you know where they are on building refurbishment? Have they started?
I believe they've started, but I think it's still early days, and I think that maybe that's part of the delays too. But okay, the last, and then I think what is one of the best pieces of news, and I have to give credit to the mayor who watches the county commission agendas with eagle eyes. I wouldn't have known this was happening if you hadn't done that and sent around an agenda. It was on December 16th. And I was like, oh, they're talking about city-led initiatives. I haven't heard about our ask for St. John's in a while. I'll tune in and see if they say something about it. lo and behold, they approved it on that day. I wouldn't have known if you had something agenda, so thank you. We did put a kind of late ask in support of St. John's, creating a extreme weather warming shelter. So this would be an overnight warming shelter in the church. They need both some money to do some refurbishment of the building to make sure it's adequately set up for that use. And then they also are partnering with Love One to be the operator of that shelter. It got the thumbs up from the county, BCC, which is great. I had a mild panic attack when then I got an IDA that was like, and here's the money for that. And I said, that should not come to me, that should go to the church. We've ironed that out. The county's gonna contract directly with St. John's. It's like, we just, sometimes in government, we make it a little too complicated. It did not need to pass through the city.
That's the shelter.
It's the Warmie, and we expect that to open for operation in 2026. I think the hope is they get on those refurbishments quickly in this year and then can open next year. Again, I'm not really I was happy to be the vessel through which they put their application into the county, but it's really been kind of county communicating directly with St. John's and Love One, so I don't have a ton of the nitty-gritty details. We're excited to see this be approved and be something coming to the downtown area. Those are my updates. I'm happy to take any questions or comments, and then I would like some feedback on that. You know, do you want us to just program these in quarterly on the forecaster going forward? Or would you like to do it more sort of when we have a timely update, we bring that back to you? You'd like to keep the quarterly cadence?
I think there's a benefit to that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with stabilization center in particular, you need to hear more frequently. I guess on the other stuff, it's kind of up and running, so I don't feel the need to have.
Is there something new and exciting?
Yeah.
Okay,
What do the counselors online think?
the voices in the sky.
I know we often are strapped for work session time, so I would even say a council report or just a quick check-in on those small, ever-evolving items. But that might not be appropriate. I don't think we need a full-fledged update like this, though I do appreciate the check-in.
Yeah, this is Robert. I'm good with everything that's already been said. But I appreciate Emma's comments. Is that sometimes we get into these reporting cycles that, quite frankly, don't make a lot of sense because things are up and running, they're moving along, and then we don't change the reporting cycle to best utilize our time. And so I appreciate her bringing that sort of question to us, like, can we step back from quarterly to semi-annual or annual or whatever, always with the caveat that if something pops up, that it pops up and she brings it to us. So I appreciate us continually, questioning that sort of a rhythm.
Great, well, here's what I'll do. I'm gonna pencil in one for next quarter specifically so I can give you a more robust update on the stabilization center.
And also maybe
the clackamas services.
because we haven't.
Yeah, but then I think, maybe going forward from there, it'll be more topical things as needed and then maybe a semi-annual update. I also, I was saying to Brent earlier today, I'm so appreciate Brent being here because again, the work that I just presented is really work that my amazing staff do, not that I do. But I also wanted to not force them to be, an evening meeting they don't need to be at. I think if we do these a little less regularly, I could get Glenn to come in and really talk to you. And I think when he tells the stories, it's even more impactful and visceral. So that'd be great. Okay, any other questions on the content? Okay, thank you.
All right, and we did have council reports at the end of our agenda.
We did.
So before I open it up to other council reports, I just want to say, since we've been talking about this stuff, that I am apparently now going to be one of 2 Clackamas County Cities reps, along with Mayor Buck, to the Metro table to discuss the reboot of the supported housing services measure, SHS measure. Lynn Peterson recently reached out and asked each county to designate 2 mayors. And so it looks like I'm gonna be doing that. It's gonna be a meeting every 2 weeks, starting on February 24th. One of the things I would love to see come out of that process is, I mean, the fact that we are still, there's been a discussion there about should there be a direct allocation to cities or should everything go through the county? You know, we actually in Clackamas County were unique in having the county, share some of their SHS money with us to do these things. The other counties didn't really have a system like that. But the fact that we're still negotiating IGAs from 8 or 9 months ago when these were awarded is kind of crazy. They're not huge dollar pots. They're not multi-million dollar, infrastructure contracts. So what I would love to see come out of the regional conversation about the new approach to SHS is to have some identified recurring kinds of costs like cooling centers, warming centers, that we don't have to reinvent. We could get direct allocations and not reinvent the wheel and have to do IGAs every time. So I don't know if I'll have any success with that, but that is my one of the things I would like to see come out of that SHS conversation. With that, I do have a couple other council reports things, but I want to open it up to others to do any they have. Councilor Koster-Body's shaking his head. Council President Anderson.
Happy to hop in quickly. I was going to say one thing on SHS, and I'm really glad you're there now. As we look at these funds, a 25% cut would be really, really challenging for any of the services that we've already received. I think the challenge in the room, Mayor Beatty, will be how do we, with the Portland Metro Chamber, find a way for them to be able to support the ballot measure? Because I've heard that if they're opposing it, polling shows that it probably isn't going to pass. So getting creative and figuring out a solution. I'm hoping to see something go forward where we don't have to accept service cuts to some really important programming. Other thing that I wanted to mention in C4, not yesterday, it might have been last week. The weeks are flying by, and this hazy sick brain is not doing a good job keeping them straight. We talked about our legislative agenda. I want to flag for you all that the transportation ask that Clackamas County has is twofold. It is the I-205 corridor widening and the Sunrise Corridor project. Those are the 2 big fiscal asks that the county is making. We heard on the floor today, House Republicans basically say that they did not want to see any type of transportation package. There was an article in the Statesman Journal about challenges and accountability with funding after the 2017 transportation package. And I think that has really galvanized them against any new investments. And so it will be a really challenging dynamic going forward, but something that we should definitely keep an eye on.
So the I-205 and Sunrise were identified as priorities both for any state asks, but also for like the federal funding that comes to Metro, the RFA and those kind of pots, right?
I don't know clearly. It escapes my memory whether RFA was involved in it as well. I know it was for sure something that we talked about around our legislative asks. I can check in and follow up with you, Mayor.
Okay, that'd be great. I mean, there's nothing urgent about that, but I'd just like to have a better understanding. I still, as I expressed at the last meeting, I have some concerns about prioritizing Sunrise, but I have not put my concerns on the paper.
I would agree. I think it's something that we should think about as a city. What dollars we're asking for, and if the county is using our voice, what we're asking for too. So maybe it's a conversation that the train has left the station, but maybe it's something that we could continue to talk about.
Okay.
I've got Water Consortium. Robert speaking. I've got Water Consortium.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Okay, so opening up from the director's report, they will release an RFP soon for a fall launch of the new school outreach education program. They lost their long-term contractor, as I reported earlier, so they have an RFP going out, and hopefully they'll get some good responses. They have a number of emergency prep operations, emergency preparedness operations, and so I'm hoping that we can get that emergency preparedness FTE filled so that we can utilize that person in these kinds of things more often. But it's a pretty robust schedule, an interconnection workshop, GIS database workshop. Um, um, there's going to be 5 county-specific tabletop emergency exercises in the coming year, so a lot going on in that regard. And I will also mention that they have heard from a number of people, a number of complaints around all the members of the consortium about water tasting bad. That sounds familiar. And so they actually have a survey going out to, I think it's like 600 water users, spread across all members of the consortium, and to kind of get a real feel on this water tasting issue. And I asked a question. I says, well, once you have that information, can you break it down by water provider? They said yes, and so don't know how big our sample would be, but it's better than probably the anecdotal information we have right now. So that's good. I did find out that members of the Water Consortium staff came and spoke to new leadership in Milwaukie. And I didn't know about that. Does anyone know about it?
Consortium staff talked to new leadership in Milwaukie.
Yeah, that was a statement. I didn't ask the question in the public forum, but they made it sound like there was a change, or I don't know if that was at the public works level or at the leadership level. I didn't know.
You haven't met with
I
them.
don't think this new leader has met with them.
Okay.
We don't have a new public works leader. We do, it could have been with Katie Guevara, our climate and natural
Okay.
resources manager, potentially. I
Okay.
think that might ring some bells, so I can follow up and find out for you, but I usually remember who I've met with.
I was gonna say Peter has met with them before.
I know he wouldn't be new. I mean,
that is new leadership.
he
Yeah.
wouldn't be new, so that's what piqued my interest there. Let's see. So, like everyone else, the Water Consortium and the Water Caucus is following a lot of legislative issues. Interestingly, Senator Taylor is the Senate member of the Water Caucus, along with Representative Helms. So I did not know that. So they are following this proposal. I don't think it's got a legislative number yet. It's about the workforce development for water system operators, and so that one's being followed very closely by the Water Consortium and the LOC. I think it's primarily driven by rural counties who are having trouble attracting and trained folks and that kind of thing. I don't think it's affecting us too much, but I don't know that for sure. But at any rate, that one has a lot of attention. Let me mention a couple others that I think are interesting as well. There's one HB 2836, and you will find the term standards listed in it a lot. And evidently, there's a pipe standards, which is actually not a standard at all, but it means that um, the professional engineers are involved in designing piping systems with very customized pipe diameters and flow capabilities and all this kind of thing, which just drives prices up greatly. And so this HB 2836 would say you can just go off and buy whatever the off-the-shelf pipe diameters and connectors and everything like that is, because that drives a lot of price escalation into these waterworks projects. There's also um, uh, a Senate bill, SB 860, which this is an interesting one. It requires that contractors be in tax compliance, um, 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 to get public works uh, contracts and that kind of thing, which is kind of interesting. And interestingly enough, the LOC, along with others, are against it. And I guess I don't have any problem with it. They didn't ask us to sign a letter on or anything like that, but I'm not sure that we're totally in line with the LOC on that one. Uh, there's more. There's HB 2803, which is a fairly significant increase in water rights, uh, licensures and that kind of thing, which typically affects water providers, large commercial operations in agriculture. Uh, and there's a lot of stakeholder engagement on this one. But basically, this is a cost recovery issue because the OWRD is just, they can't cover the cost of issuing the water rights. Now, a city may not have, one of these things might, every 3, 4, 5 years, but agriculture can have them frequently. Um, and there's another bill. That I'll mention, HB 2947, and it's a bill to give an exemption for certain water rights users to comply with the PFAS requirements. And the reason for this is that you would say, well, why would we want anyone to have a waiver there? And the issue is that there's a lot of agriculture providers who are using water and they don't want to go through the cumbersome PFAS treatment when they are watering things that have no uh, uh, human consumption involved. Because you may not know this, but Oregon is the largest producer of lawn turf in the country, and so that gets that they use water obviously to grow that turf, and it has no human consumption, and they're saying we need a pass for that. That kind of makes sense to a certain extent, but then you go, well, that water, that PFAS is just going back in the ground, so maybe that's not a good thing. So not sure about that, and uh, so that was a lot of legislation that the uh, the Water Consortium and the Water Caucus are following.
So it would be great if you could figure out which ones, if you could coordinate with Scott offline and figure out which
I was
ones
going to do that.
you think he should track. Okay, great.
I think there's maybe 2 or 3 out of the 6 I think I discussed.
Okay, great. And I will say on that PFAS thing, I don't know if it's the same bill because it's not agriculture, but I know Wes is concerned about because Wes is trying to look for some exemption from PFAS because I mean, they're not a water provider, but I guess anyway, there's some concern on the part of Wes. I've seen something in county agendas and stuff that Wes is bringing that to the county commission. Okay. Anything else, Councilor Massey?
Nope.
Okay. I had a letter that was in your packets about electric fencing. I thought I would have an update and maybe Gresham's letter for us to think about signing on to. I do not have that, so I will circle back on that next Tuesday. I did just want to mention, and I have a lot of notes from the MMC on legislation, but I think really the reports that I forward from them cover that, so I'm not going to retread that ground in this meeting. I did have a meeting today with two Milwaukie guys, longtime residents who have a nonprofit called Believe Educational Foundation. And I was all, when they asked me for a meeting, I'm like, oh, well, we're a bee city, let me put you into contact with the people who are working on bee city. Well, they're really about honeybees, not about natural bees. And there's actually, I've done a lot of reading today and talked to someone at Xerxes Society, and there's actually, honeybees compete with our native bees. And so like doing a push to get more honeybee hives in Milwaukie is not maybe something that would be a great thing under our bee city. But there are, there are places for honeybees, certainly in agriculture and elsewhere. The one thing that I thought was interesting about their model is that they are, one of the things they're doing, they're trying to get people to, put in hives. They're trying to work with educational institutions. So I was talking to them about St. Schellenberg. They're already working with Clackamas Community College down in Norfolk City. They have a program to do scholarships for vets to go to become beekeepers. Yeah. So they have a program to pay for the training through Clackamas Community College for vets to become beekeepers, and I thought that would be something you would be interested in. Apparently it is quite, there is a shortage of beekeepers in the country, so like trained beekeepers are in demand. So anyway, I have some materials on that. I will share them with Councilor Khosrowshahi. If anybody else is interested in them, I can share them more widely. But I did, it is an interesting thing about that the honeybees and the native bees are not necessarily, they can be compatible, but you don't want an overabundance of honeybees or you impact the native bees. They also can be some disease issues and things like that. So it was an interesting day. I learned a lot about bees today. All right. I don't have anything else. If there's nothing else, adjourn. Looking around, everybody. I'm not seeing anybody. Okay. So we will adjourn this study session and see everyone next week for
Feel better,
feel better, you guys. Yeah. We hope to see you in person, but not if you're gonna spread anything, so.
Yeah.